Welcome to the Homeschool Show from North Carolinians for Home Education. I'm Amanda Wayers, your host, and I have with me today Briggs Greenwood. Hey, Briggs.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Good. I'm so excited to have you as a guest today. And I would love for you to start off just by introducing yourself. Tell us about you.
Okay. As Amanda said, I'm Briggs Greenwood, and my current role at NCHE is that I am an advisor to our board of directors, and I am responsible for coordinating our membership program, and also I get the joy of coordinating our graduation, which is super fun. Mm-hmm. And I have been on this homeschool journey for 23 years and graduated my first 3 of my boys and have one adorable teenager still hanging out at home, and I'm learning how to have a very different experience when you only have one student instead of 4, but it's pretty great. I'm tickled to be here. So
that's awesome. So tell me about, how did you get started just with homeschooling in general? Because I know your oldest son went to school for a little bit.
He sure did. He was in a public school in Chapel Hill, and actually we started school in Boston and then in Chapel Hill, and he was really struggling. And we had a pretty rough experience with one teacher one year, and I was at actually a mom's retreat at my school. And I had a couple of friends my next door neighbor, and also another friend who was homeschooling high school at that point, and he was a 4th grader. And I saw her and I talked a little bit, and I thought, if she can do it, maybe this is not impossible. But both of them looked at me and literally said, it doesn't have to be this way. And they were right. So I then took my toddler and my 6-week-old to the public school the next week and said, I'd like my child back, please. And until this year, none of my children had set foot in a public school. And the only reason that we're there this year is because my youngest and I volunteer at a Good News Club that happens to meet in a public school.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yep.
How cool is that? Wow. So Briggs and I always say that we have very parallel lives.
We sure do.
Because I also have 3 older children that have graduated and one 15-year-old. Our boys are just a few weeks apart in age. And how I started homeschooling was very similar, like similar ages and everything. So that's so neat. Wow. How cool.
Awesome.
And then how did you first get involved with NCHE? Because I always think that's super interesting for people to hear too. Like, how do we get involved? How do we volunteer and start with this journey as well?
So my next door neighbor, the one who helped me get started, took me to my first conference. So this is 22 years of being part of NCHE, of those 23. And the second year I went, I sort of felt uncomfortable in that big crowd. And so I thought, what can I do? And I signed up to be a volunteer. And just a couple of years after that, maybe even the next year, the person who was the volunteer coordinator at the time for the conference said, I can't be there. Would you coordinate the people on site?
Wow.
And it's just sort of snowballed into, okay, now I'm going to do this until they fire me. So here I am.
Wow. Yep. That's amazing. So I know, you were volunteer coordinator for the conference, which is such a big job. I can't even imagine. And then you were a regional liaison. Is that right?
Yep.
So I know you were regional liaison. And then what else have you done? You've had a couple other roles maybe.
I took over the graduation at the same year that I became the Region 5 liaison, because the person who had done both of those things for a very long time was suddenly not there. So it was a bit of a baptism by fire, actually.
No
but
doubt.
It's been lovely.
Wow. Well, I know also that how many hundreds and hundreds of families have been blessed by your service coordinating the graduation, because it is a beautiful ceremony. You all on this show have heard me go on and on about how great NCHE's graduation ceremony is. And much of that is...
Well, you're very kind to say that. I have an awful lot of help, including all of my family. All of my boys show up in their grown-upness and help out, and that makes a big difference.
It is. Well, it's wonderful. So my encouragement to you guys that are watching this and listening to this is volunteering is not that scary. It
No, it's
can
really
be.
not.
Yeah. And really, there is something for everyone. If you are not a crazy extrovert, maybe you want to coordinate something. Maybe
Mhm.
you want to do something that's a little more behind the scenes work. There is a place for you.
And there's a beautiful gift of community that you don't necessarily expect
Yeah,
when you volunteer with this group. It's incredibly welcoming and enveloping, and there really is a place for everybody's skill set.
it is. That is wonderful. So awesome. All right, so I want to do a homeschool helps with Amanda today. And today I actually may have some advice, and I want to ask Briggs what she thinks about this too. So we are coming up on the holidays, and I don't know who out there has experienced this, but I know I have. If there are some family members that maybe you don't see except at the holidays, and now you're going to see them, and that great uncle or whoever it is maybe isn't quite sure about homeschooling, or maybe they're out and out not supportive, and they're going to use this time to either try to convince you of why you're wrong for the choices that you're making, or they're going to start in and like quiz your kids. That's always fun. Had
Oh,
that
yes.
experience more than once. But what do you do? How do you handle that? You're going to be in this situation with these people that maybe the rest of the year you don't have to deal with. But what do you do in that situation? That's hard.
It is.
So I would say for me, I always say I'm allergic to conflict. I really, really
That's
hate it.
great.
I'm so bad at it and I really hate it. So usually my way of handling it would be to avoid it as much as possible. So I would change the subject. I would walk away. In the beginning, that's probably always how I would handle it. A little as I've become a little more experienced, maybe a little older, um, now I think I try to give those naysayers the facts. So I will just say, well, homeschoolers do great on achievement test as compared to their publicly and privately schooled peers, or whatever it is. There's so many facts out there to back up homeschooling. So I think that's how I handle it these days. Um, I really, really hate when people quiz my kids, though.
Oh,
And
yes.
so a few times I have been like, jump in with some other question or some other statement or something, try to just get them out of that situation. So,
Right.
how about you? How do you handle that?
We've actually been really fortunate in that we've really only had a major conflict with one family member who we don't see very often at all.
Mm-hmm.
But my husband has handled that really well, in ways that I haven't been able to, because it's so personal to me. I'm the one doing it, and I don't like feeling like if someone's quizzing my kid, I feel like I'm the one who's really on trial, sort of.
Yes.
So he's been a really great defender. That's been helpful as he's taken on that conflict for me. But I've also, done things like say, my children didn't come in a box, and I'm not gonna let you put them back in one. Like
Oh,
they are who they are. All three of my graduates have had very different plans, and we've tailored their school plan very differently for them. And we've just I just don't let it happen,
yeah.
because I don't like conflict,
Yeah.
but you don't get to devalue my people.
Oh,
So
that's
I
good.
will I will happily put you back in your
Yes.
place. But mostly when I know it's coming, I
Mm.
just try to pray about using his words and not my words.
Mm.
And once I wrote a very confrontational email to that particular relative who said, "Oh, well, you're going to put elementary school is fine, but you're going to put them in real school for high school, right?" This is my first one.
Yeah.
And I wrote this scathing email that did not represent the Lord in any way, shape, or form. And my husband said, "Can I please read that before you send it?"
Oh,
He rewrote it,
okay.
and it was beautiful. It was full of statistics. It was full of wisdom, and it still said, "Back off.
Yes.
This is not your thing."
Yes.
And she really actually didn't say anything else for years.
Oh, there you
So
go.
sometimes it's really about that support.
Yes.
And if all your husband does in your homeschool role is support you, especially outwardly, then you're doing good.
It's so true. That's a great point. So for me, I think if I knew it was coming and I kind of even rehearsed a little bit with myself what to say, even,
Yes.
said, okay, prayed and said, please give me some words. I think that would help me in that situation because I don't deal with conflict in the moment
Oh,
well at
yes.
all. So that would help me
Ramps
a
my
lot.
anxiety up for sure if I'm not
Yes,
prepared.
yes. And I like the writing something out and sending it, or letting someone edit is probably a good idea if you're all, up in
It's
your
something you're
feelings
passionate.
about it.
Yeah, if you're
Yes,
something you're
yes,
passionate about, sometimes you need someone else's
for
piece
sure. For
to handle
sure.
that out for you.
Yeah. So for all of you out there, there's some tips. Hopefully some of that will help if you are going to be in that situation coming up in these holidays, because sometimes it just gets tiring. You're tired of it, tired of hearing it,
Yeah, and I would say if you're not sure and you don't feel like you have a support person, our you have a regional liaison. Get in touch with that person and just ask. This is the situation I'm in. How could somebody help me with some words for that? That's a great way to use your regional as a resource.
Yes, that is such a good point. So I really feel like that our regional liaisons are super underutilized. So for all of you out there watching and listening to this, if you do not know first what region you're in, NCHE has the state divided into 9 regions, or who your regional liaison is, then I encourage you to go right now. Go to nche.com/local and you can look up your regions. You can search for which region you're in. You can find the page. It has a little bio and how to contact your regional liaison. And they are, like what Briggs was saying, they're just an invaluable source
Absolutely.
of information, of connection, of being able to answer your questions, just all the things. So please do that. That would be great for you.
Absolutely.
Now, we talk every now and then about learning on location because homeschooling does not just happen at home.
It rarely happens with my family.
Right? So, one thing I wanted to think about is about camping. So, camping,
yes.
or now this could be camping as a family. This could be going to camp, like your kids, okay? So, in my own personal family, we have camped a lot over the years in various ways. We started out tent camping when the kids were really little, and we tent camped for a long time. And then we started RVing and
fancy camping.
Yes, glamping, if you will. And we have glamped, we have RV camped for the last several years, and that's been a lot of fun for us. So we've done a lot of camping, and I find that one, just going to different places, different parts of the state, we've gone to other states, you learn so much. And really, every time we go to a new place, I really do. Maybe it's a nerd thing or a homeschool mom thing, I don't know. But I will look and see what kind of experiences, what kind of things there are
absolutely.
in that area. Is there a museum to go to? Is there something to check out? And
I love a ranger program.
Oh, yes, yes. And I feel like we always learn. We're always learning anyway. Our kids are always learning, but I feel like we learn so much just when we're kind of out of our normal environment and doing that. So I think camping has been a great educational experience.
I would agree. It's been something that our family has enjoyed a lot too. And sometimes it will allow you to, because you're taking that less expensive option, you're not paying for hotels and going in and out of a little boxy room. It allows you to experience some things you might not otherwise. Your activity budget sometimes gets bigger because your travel budget's not so much. Yeah, and it's and you learn to live with each other in different spaces. There's an awful lot of life skill involved in camping too.
Gosh, yes, so much. Especially, I mean, now, in the RV, it's really like you're just taking your hotel room with you.
True.
So it's not quite the same.
With slightly less hot water, maybe.
There you go. But whenever we were originally tent camping, I felt like, the kids had to do a lot of figuring things out,
Absolutely.
learning how to cook outside, and all these things
Well,
that
and
are
just having
really,
them play in
oh,
the woods is
yes.
a really beautiful way to school.
It's so good. And now, especially in these days when social media and the internet and we're constantly connected, we're
Mm-hmm.
constantly, we have this stimulation. I think getting away and getting out into nature
For sure.
is so valuable. And even if you do glamp like I do, you can still get out in nature. I do.
Absolutely.
I sleep in my fancy RV, but otherwise I get out.
No,
So
absolutely.
it's great. I love it. So another way, another kind of learning that might happen is actually going to camp. Now, did your boys go to camp ever? Did they go to like sleepaway camp
Yep.
or?
The younger two in particular loved. They spent several summers at Camp Caraway
Mhm.
as a for a boys' week, and they've done sleepaway camps that involve their grandfather or involve
Yes.
their dad, and they really learned some independence that I wasn't expecting them to have just from being away. And
Yes.
it was we've been really careful about what camps we've chosen,
For sure.
but yeah, so there are some great ones around, and I highly recommend it. I was not a camper girl as a kid. I was very anxious, and
Yeah.
I'm tickled that my kids have had social experiences that didn't make them feel uncomfortable about being away from home.
Yes, yeah. I think we've also had a really positive experience of going to camp. There is one particular camp that my I actually went to as a child, and my siblings did, and now my kids go, which is
Oh, I didn't
really,
know that was your connection to
it's
that camp. That's
true. It's
wonderful.
so neat. And the camp that we go to, it's called Mountaintop Youth Camp. It is a Christian camp. And they even have weeks before public school lets out, they have weeks for homeschool
Oh,
students,
fantastic.
which is really a neat experience. But the kids, I think exactly what you're saying, like they learn some skills in that environment that maybe they would never learn at home. They
Yeah,
would
they'd have no
never,
reason to.
right. And so I think that's been really valuable for them in a lot of different ways, being away from home, first of all, which is sometimes something that maybe our homeschool kids don't experience a lot, maybe not as much. Um, and just all the different things that they're doing, at the camp my kids go to, they do rappelling,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't know when else my kids would have had that
Right.
experience. They do like a high ropes course and all these different things that
Yeah,
are
one of
really
my kids
neat.
discovered archery that he would not have been exposed to at home, probably.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's really great. So that is fun. And all of that, every time we talk about a location to learn, that is just to encourage you that learning does not have to just happen at home.
absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Last but not least, we always like to give you some news of what's going on with NCHE. So, once again, check out our field trips page. We have for sure the Charlotte Hornets game coming up. So make sure you check that out. I know that um, a lot of people have already bought tickets. They're already kind of getting a little scarce. So be sure to check that out if you want to go to get the best seats. Um, and also, just in general, do you know that NCHE has awesome field trips all year long?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
tell us a little bit about how the field trips work. What?
So I have the privilege of being on the activities committee that helps choose those things, and we have an amazing activities director in Evelyn Bickley,
Mm-hmm.
and she's chosen some really fun things for this year. I'll give you a little hint at one that may be related to a sleepover at the aquarium at the coast, where we don't have any firm plans for that, but that will be a really exciting kind of small, intimate thing. And we try to choose things around the state. We don't do all of them in major cities. We've sort of found some rural things to do, and we try to do west and east and central. And we just would really encourage you to take a look at those. And if you are a member, there are often opportunities to register for those early. We can't do that with all of them,
Yes.
But if you are a member, you'll get a little early notification about field trips, and you can take advantage of those. And I suspect that will be the way we do this aquarium one, because it's going to be so small.
Okay. Wow, that sounds awesome. I love field trips. Everybody knows that. I've said that for
You sure
years and
do.
years. Field trips are my favorite. I feel like the guy on Elf, that's my favorite. Field trips really are my favorite. I think they're great. And I really do believe that they are one of the easiest ways for kids to learn something without even knowing they're learning it. So I love field
Absolutely.
trips. Check that out for sure. That is also at nche.com. Under the activities tab, there's a whole page just about field trips. So be sure to check that out. Last but not least, this is kind of related to the Hornets, but NCHE has a lot of sports. Did you know that? I know a lot of times people, especially with older kids, one of their maybe sticking points with homeschooling is having sports, organized sports teams for their kids to be a part of. Well, NCHE has NCHE AC, which is the athletic commission, and it has, I don't know, hundreds, literally more than 100 sports teams around the state in all kinds of sports. Right now, because it's winter, basketball's going on. I think swimming is coming up, fencing is going on. And then, all throughout the year, there's volleyball, there's soccer, there's
cross country.
Cross country is a big one. Yes. So there's just a lot of opportunities out there to for your kid. It's middle and high school for these organized sports, and they compete against each other, and also sometimes the private schools or sometimes even public schools in their area.
Absolutely.
So it's another really neat opportunity if your kids are into sports to learn some teamwork, to learn to be coachable and teachable, and to just get to compete against other kids their age or their ability level. That is such a great opportunity if they're into that. So
and I would say, if you take a look at the places where we have teams now, and it isn't particularly close to you, we also encourage you to consider organizing something. We will give you the help you need to create a local league that could compete with other homeschoolers. We would love to have more families involved in different areas.
Yes, for sure. That is such a good note there. So be sure to check out, you can go to ncheac.com, and you can search for teams in your area. You can see the information about what's going on and all of that. All right. So I think that's all I have for today. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you
being
very
with
much
me.
for having me.
This was a lot of fun. And as always, guys, we want you to homeschool with confidence and joy.
For sure.
So until next time, bye-bye.